Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. Just a quick one today, but I was curious about something that maybe some of you have noticed as well. Have you ever seen your villagers doing this? For whatever reason, they sometimes choose to walk a really long way to drop food off at a mill when there's a perfectly good town center much closer. Is it actually programmed for them to prefer mills? Is this a bug? Or is there a really easy explanation? Well, let's find out. Here we have a pretty simple test with a Dark Age Slavic farmer in the middle of a bunch of mills. As you can see from the grid, there is an equal 2-tile space all the way around it. The question is, if we wait for her to farm and drop off food over a period of time, which mills will she prefer to use? It seems sort of obvious that she'll avoid the ones in the corners since they'll be around 40% farther away from the farm than the inside ones. But other than that, you might expect a pretty even distribution. A farming mechanic worth knowing is that villagers don't actually use the entire farm. They hang out exclusively on the left side. In fact, watching her, I noticed even more than that. The farm covers 9 complete tiles, but having the grid lines on, we can see there's actually 16 intersections that includes. The villagers walk only between 9 of those intersections, primarily on the left side. Every time she walks to a new spot, she picks one from those 9 intersections that she isn't already at, moves to that intersection, and picks up another 2.5 food. She does this 4 times until she has 10 food in total, and then moves to the closest mill. We'd expect, therefore, that she should drop off food to the mills at the left more often, which is exactly what we see. In fact, it's pretty easy to predict which mill she's going to choose based on which intersection she ends her collection on, and it's all very logical with her going to the closest one. The big test that gets to the heart of the question, though, is what happens when we replace those preferred mills with town centers. I've replaced every 2 mills on the left side with a town center, but made sure that they're still 2 tiles away. She doesn't have to walk any further to get to the town center than she did to the mills, but running the test for a while, I think the results speak for themselves. Suddenly, 2/3 of her trips are to the right side, obviously giving her longer trips in order to do that. It really looks like she's intentionally avoiding the town centers and walking farther just to get to a mill. So if you're like me and suspected they prefer mills to town centers, it looks like you're right. The follow-up then, of course, is what happens if we replace all the mills with town centers. In that case, it reconfirms the original test, and she'll again use the left town centers as the drop-off overwhelmingly. That's pretty solid evidence to me that all else being equal, even when it's not to their advantage, they'll prioritize dropping off at mills. So what's going on? Do villagers just enjoy walks in the country over trips into town? I think some of you have probably already guessed it, but what's going on is that the villagers aren't looking at the edge of the building like we are. They're looking at the middle. Notice in the second experiment, the edges of the town center and mills are 2 tiles from the edge of the farm, but the middle of the town center is at least 4 tiles away from the farm, whereas the mill is centered 3 tiles away. If you're just looking at the middle of the buildings, it looks like the mills are placed closer. When the villager gets to her 10 food, she looks around and asks herself which drop-off point is closest. But being a computer game with buildings centered at different coordinates, she looks at those centers instead of which edge is closest, which would be the more important question from an efficiency standpoint, but harder to calculate. To test if that's actually what's going on, I have a prediction that in this case, the villager on the corner of the farm will prefer to walk the 5-tile length to get to the mill instead of the 4.2 tiles to get to the town center. That's because the center of the mill is slightly closer. It's not optimal, but you can see why she thinks she's making the best choice. It's the same thing again in this case. She can walk 3 tiles to the town center or 4 to the mill, and she picks the mill because the middle of the town center is 0.1 tile further away. So, mystery solved. It's still slightly annoying to see them walking extra distance for apparently no reason, but at least next time I'll be able to tell myself that the villagers are just trying their best and are actually doing some impressive number crunching on the fly. Even if the math checks out, you can still sometimes come to the wrong conclusion. I can respect that and even relate. But that's all for this one. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.